The family and I visited Canyonlands National Park, where we drove to Mesa Arch. Really interesting arch in that it was on the edge of the rim into the canyon.
Mesa Arch is gorgeous, and that when you look through the arch, you see more red rock through it. It's almost like a little looking glass of sorts, but it's like an extreme drop right off the back of it. So I was worried about the kids. On our way to the Grand Canyon, we stopped in a town called Kanab. And Kanab is a really small town. Chris found this motor lodge, an old motor lodge that was probably from, like the 1960s originally.
I wouldn't say it was a great place to stay because the rooms were a little small, but it was a pretty interesting experience.
It was pretty much a motel. There was probably about 10 rooms and they were all just one floor. It was like outside to get to each of the rooms, so it was just very old school.
The next day we go to breakfast, it's just this small table with like some hard-boiled eggs and like some croissants on it. And I was like, I guess this is breakfast.
The coolest thing was they had bicycles that any of the guests could borrow. So we, instead of having to use the car, we could just park, and we used bicycles to ride around the town, went to a pizza place, went through a little park. And anyway, it was a good little stopover on our way to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. Did a short hike on the north rim side of the Bright Angel Trail.
At the north rim, I really enjoyed seeing the buffalo. There were at least 2 different herds of buffalo as we were driving through. I had never seen a buffalo in person, and man, these things were humongous.
So that was really cool because I think I've only seen buffalo in zoos before.
Babies were really cute because they would pretty much just follow where the mom went, but because they were so much smaller, it took them that many more steps to get like across the road, which they did on our way out.
Got a little nervous that they were gonna kind of run into a car, run into us, but it was fine.
So we visited the south rim of the Grand Canyon, which was an awesome view. Just standing next to the south rim was humbling. You definitely feel tiny, and the world feels very big. We were able to hike down into the canyon, which was a cool experience. We took the South Kebab Trail. I tell you what though, the elevation changes from the rim down to the bottom of the canyon are pretty significant.
So on the trail, it was a bunch of switchbacks, and it first just started with about five or so switchbacks, steep switchbacks, back and forth down to pretty much, it seems like a one-lane path. Like it was one way.
We are on the South Kebab Trail, and first on the South Kebab Trail, the first thing you come to is Ooh Ah Point, and they say that they just named it that because that was the first point that you could stop and say ooh ah, and there's actually a sign that points it out. Then we continued on to where we are right now, which is Cedar Ridge. We're assuming this is where they kind of stop and give the mules a break on their way down to the bottom of the canyon. A little bit of shady spots for us to stop and have a snack and shoot this video.
We were sitting in this little shady spot and a squirrel came up to us, and Dad gave me the idea to give him some water. So I took off the cap from my Nalgene and I poured water into it, and he drank directly from that water. I then drank out of the bottle, but it's cool.
So when we first got down there, we were like, oh, this is like really easy to go down. Well, little do we know, when we go back up, it's gonna be extremely difficult. My knee was hurting, my ankles were hurting.
That was awful. That was probably, I don't know, I think that was the hardest hike because it was straight up stairs. It was like 1.5 miles of walking upstairs pretty much.
By the time we started our ascent, the sun was just full on out, and it was tough. I mean, it really is, like Kate said, it's really like walking stairs, lots and lots of flights of stairs in the sun. I was kind of spent, you know. At some point you sort of start crying.
One of the cool things we saw when we were hiking out of the canyon was the mule train. And I saw these 2 rustic dudes that were truly authentic cowboys. I could totally see 100 years ago, guys just like them driving these mules right out of the canyon. It was a really interesting sight to see.
So one thing that is interesting about this trip is several of these places I came when I was a teenager, similar in ages to both Kate and Morgan, and it's been a totally different experience coming back as an adult and seeing things for the second time. It's been fun being able to introduce these to the girls at the same age that I was when I first came out.
I didn't expect any of it. Like, I came in thinking the Grand Canyon was like, oh, it's gonna be like another one of these stops we've done. But no, we went in and it was like a whole little town. We didn't have Wi-Fi for the majority of the time, so that was interesting too. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting place. I'm not gonna say it was cool, but like, it was definitely interesting.